Welcome back to Midday. We are here at the Kamloops Art Gallery in the Cube with Assistant Curator here at the Gallery, Craig Wilms, and of course, Curator of the Cube as well. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for coming down.
Thanks for having us here. Craig, let's talk a little bit about the latest exhibition here inside the Cube. We kind of chatted a little bit before we started the segment, but it's quite humorous. There's a lot of humor to this one.
Yeah, this is Michael Dumontier and Neil Farber, and they're originally part of a group called the Royal Art Lodge, who were a prominent group about the late 90s out of the University of Manitoba, and they really had this kind of collaborative spirit to their practices. So these two have continued this kind of way of working where they take an image, and as you see, we were chatting about some of them, kind of text response to an image. So it's kind of this kind of humorous play between image and words.
And the detail that has gone into this, I mean, you only have to look to actually see that, you know, the text is so tiny and some of the little squares are so tiny in the paintings. It's amazing.
Yeah, so a lot of this work is like our ongoing projects. So the big work full of books, it's constantly been built on since 2009.
Right.
So they'll paint the spine or a cover of a book. Sometimes it's blank, sometimes there's an image. And then they spend a lot of time talking back and forth about what this book should be about or what it says. And it's like one-liners sometimes there's quite dark humor or absurd, and sometimes it's poignant. So in chatting with them, they've talked about how writing has become more of the part they focus on. They can kind of splash down a painting or a drawing of anything and then talk about what it's about. And that can go in many directions, often humorous.
And you can see that when you read some of the text in this. Is this quite a unique exhibition, would you say, having most of it focus on text? Doesn't seem like something we would see very often.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
It's odd. In the last couple of years, I seem to have had kind of this, around this time of year, collaborative duo or collaborative works where artists are working together. So that's not a regular art practice, I would say. So in this kind of exchange of ideas, I think getting past just visual language, or if you've ever seen these guys' studio, it's packed with paperbacks, typewriters, records, kind of
throwing it back,
yeah,
like
throwing
old
it
school.
back. I mean, there's a work on the walls that is a woman at a typewriter with a blank page, and that's just a print, and then they scroll these things through their typewriter and type out these little poems, or kind of similar to the books, a kind of dark or play on words or play on a popular phrase. So unusual in that we don't see so much to read, but there is a lot to take in. But I think it really plays well to when artists work together and maybe are coming at it from similar approaches, but maybe have different methodology.
And like you say, it's starting to go, at least this one itself, going beyond just that picture, just that painting. I mean, that in itself is amazing in many ways, but taking a look a little deeper, right, inside what you're seeing?
Yeah, and I think it's, in some ways, actually, it's kind of narrowing it, just like you would caption, say, a photograph or a picture. So it gives a little bit of a limitation to how a person may interpret it, but then so much of their text is left kind of open-ended, or kind of a cliched phrase that has a little twist in it. So that kind of takes you to another kind of aha moment, or another kind of perspective to look at it in.
Yeah, and I mean, like anything, people will see things differently, right? So they might interpret each of these squares a little differently, but Yeah, it's amazing. I just love the detail. It's amazing. It really
Yeah,
is. How small the writing is, right?
yeah, and just the quantity of works, the library piece, when we put it up, numbers over 700 individual works.
Oh my goodness.
And each square is actually a unique painting that is put up one by one. So it's all in increments of about 1.5 to 3 inches.
Is it displayed in a particular manner, the way that they have it in their mind, or is it kind of, could it go in any way?
There are loose guidelines.
Okay.
So the instruction we get with it, there is a loose map, but you can't read every individual one.
Okay.
They wanted they didn't want us to concentrate it with colors. They didn't want it to all be yellow in a section or all be blue. And it works into these kind of 3 by 3 squares. Yeah. So the largest square, if you look through the whole thing, it will always be in these kind of gridded off squares.
So there is a method to the way that you.
There's a method, but there's a lot of freedom to play with phrase or play with images if you go that way. Yeah. Or if it comes down to the last minute, you just need to build blocks. There's some interesting relationships if you kind of read book to book. And then sometimes there's seemingly no relationship reading book to book, but it makes for a lot of kind of fun hunting through that.
So just to sort of wrap up, Craig, so you mentioned this is called the library, right?
Yes.
So what are the individual things we're seeing on the wall, the displays?
The major series are the library, there's the series of typed prints simply called typing.
Yep.
This is division, which is a number of different houses and trees and animals, kind of a play of urban and natural with lots of script. And then another series of paintings that have the same kind of call and response, but instead of books dealing with images and dealing with images and other kind of quirky drawings.
Yeah, wonderful. Great, thank you so much, Craig. This is a really unique and somewhat humorous exhibit down here at the Cube, so make sure you check it out. It's really neat. If you have the time, you're going to want to walk around and read all the little text involved, because that is, of course, a huge piece of this whole thing. Down here at the Campbell's Art Gallery, this runs until the 23rd of March, so March 23rd at the Cube. Make sure you check it out. We're back in a couple of minutes on Midday. Stay with us.